Hello, you guys. Um, I don't plan to be on here long. That's the plan. But if you are new to this channel, allow me to formally and properly invite you into this space where I choose to just let my hair down, speak from a place. Hold on, I'm tilted. Why am I so tilted? But speaking a place of transparency through faith and fear and life experiences. So, my name is Keisha Covington. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. Just a little background, and I have such a space that fuels me on YouTube and on my social media platforms, where I am, with all the flaws and all, choosing to speak on some experiences, some stories, some true stories that may relate to your story when it comes down to disappointments, when it comes down to suffering as a Christian and what does that mean? And also when it comes down to just some natural things like what does it feel like to be a woman, a daughter? What does it feel like to be a wife, a pet owner, a business owner, a first time author, the black sheep of your family? Like, what does all that feel like? So, welcome, welcome, welcome to this channel. And this is what sparked this YouTube live today. And this is where I can say this is probably not going to be a long live because I know I can go down a rabbit hole with this conversation. I won't disclose the name of this podcast, but this podcast is one that I thoroughly enjoy that has a new episode today. And in the episode or part of the title, there are particular words that give you the idea that the discussion is going to be about women in general who are needing to be educated or enlightened through young ladies that's going to be a part of the conversation need to be enlightened on our bodies, our diets, our hormonal challenges, even. And I haven't shared much of that story with how that looks and have looked for me on my YouTube channel just yet because I have to carve out probably enough time to get my thoughts together so I won't ramble. But I also just have to find the emotional availability to crack open those memories and the things that I'm dealing with, even still to this day, as an African American woman, and what that all entails with the things that I discovered with my body, the things that I was completely oblivious and ignorant to, and had to take certain steps just to learn how I was going to survive these monstrosities with my body. And even now, I can tell you, after I have had things to transpire with my challenges, I still don't quite know with this body that I had to live in if my body is receiving what it needs to receive in order to be as healthy as it can be, because I want my body, because I'm accountable for it. I want my body to feel good on a daily. I want my body to know that I love it and I am rooting for it. And though it has been through some very scary seasons, I am behind my body, cheering it on, saying, I have your back. I'm going to learn what I need to learn. I'm going to unlearn what I need to unlearn. And then it's going to be some trial and error because I may not quite be acquainted with my body the way my body needs me to be acquainted with it. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and get the transparency out of the way. Okay? The transparency is this: since I even started going into puberty, my body, which you all can barely see, but I went through puberty at a young age. And when I was going through puberty, I had just had the most tragic thing that can happen to a child. And one of the more tragic things that happened to me as a child was the loss of my father. And it was as if the loss of my father and puberty shook hands and said, "We're ready to rock and roll. We're ready to deal with all the adjustments, the challenges, the things you don't know, the things you are oblivious to and naive to, with knowing how to grieve." Because I didn't get the grieving notes or cheat code until 2022, somewhere in there, where I was graced by the grace of God to finish and well, to conclude and finish my first ever book called Icon, EIKON, The Life You Can't Imagine. And it wasn't until I was almost done writing that book where I realized that I had suppressed grief. And in that book, I do tap into the Keisha who was a child that had to deal with the loss of her father and had to deal with now going through physical change through puberty, menstrual cycles. Y'all, I didn't know that things were going to appear at my front door the way they did so early. And neither did I ever know anything about it, period. You know why? Because no one in my family, right, presented this idea that my body was going to um, go through what we call periods or menstrual cycles or PMS. My friends at the time, they were not going through menstrual cycles because we were the same age at the time. And here I am going through a menstrual cycle before all of my friends, except for one girl that had actually had to repeat a grade. She repeated a grade with us, and she, went through her hormonal change, and she was discussing with us, "Hey, you guys, I got my period." And all my friends who were around to hear that, they were like, "Oh my god, oh my god!" And I was like, "Oh my god, oh my god!" I didn't know what it was, so I asked my sisters when I got home. I have two sisters, two older sisters, and however I came to that conversation, I either asked them or my mom, but I do remember that that conversation was not available to have, right? So let's get into the nitty gritty. I went through my menstrual cycle um, at the age of 11. At the age of 11, I went through my menstrual cycle, and something wasn't right. My menstrual cycles were god awful. Like, they, I had tremendous cramps, okay? And let me conclude this real soon because I'm watching my time. But for women out there, if you know about having extreme back pain, extreme lower abdominal pain, cramps that make you want to exit life, okay? I'm talking about severe, severe cramps. It was not popular at the time. I'm a 70s baby, late 70s baby. it was not popular at the time to be going to the doctor for everything that's supposed to be natural. It just wasn't. It wasn't a thing to consider going to the doctor because you're having cramps. That's normal. You're a female, so you go through cramps. So okay, suck it up. But I should have had medical assistance with the type of menstrual cycles, the pain that I had, and then on top of that, the blood loss that I went through. And I'm talking TMI, you know, having a lot of blood loss, soiling a lot of clothes, ruining a lot of bed sheets, ruining a lot of clothes. Um, and then on top of that, going through having um, blood clots, massive, massive blood clots. And those things were discussed to a certain degree, but we were just a family of women that lost my father while all of this was going on. Anyway, so I went through all of that, and I'm just going to list it so you all won't hear the backstory. I'll give a backstory another day. But unbeknownst to me, I was suffering and had developed uh, fibroids. And people tell us, African American women are more uh, susceptible to having fibroids, like it's a genetic thing. And I didn't hear much chatter about my aunts or anyone having fibroid issues. I had issues with my fibroids, and they tell us that if you don't have any issues with your fibroids, don't worry about it. Just leave it be. Just let your body do what it's going to do, and disregard, that they're even there. Because if they're not bothering you through the vein of pain, then they didn't even really break that down. They would just say if it's not bothering you, don't worry about it. So how do you know if it's bothering you? Do you know if it's bothering you because it hurts? Do you know that it's bothering you because you see something different with your abdomen, right? Are you having issues that spark, a red flag to let you know that hey, this is something, caused by tumors and cysts. So there was no way that I could just totally pinpoint it at the early stages. It wasn't until I started realizing that, hey, I look pregnant and I'm not pregnant because at the time I was a virgin and TMI. And I still was developing like this large stomach. And that's when I had to go through the ups and downs with changing doctors, getting diagnosed only for a doctor to say, okay, we're going to just give you some naproxen and, you know, have you go home. And oh, I already had to take pain meds for the cycles. Naproxen is nothing but Aleve. That's what Aleve medicine is. It's just naproxen basically. So I'm doubling up on naproxen, just to try to have this space livable, right? So it was the fibroids, it was the extreme menstrual cramps, and on top of that, I later found out I had endometriosis. I later found out that there was a possibility that I had ovarian cancer. I later found out that after, I was sexually active, um, that I had a possible ectopic pregnancy when I was married my first year. Um, and then I had to have my surgery to remove fibroids, and the endometriosis was discovered during surgery. The fibroids and the sizes were definitely more accurate after the surgery. And then I went through, after having all of my fibroids removed, they returned with a vengeance. And my doctor informed me with some information that I only had a small window of time to conceive if I wanted to conceive. So there were a lot of mixed feelings. There were a lot of unfinished business going on in my life. There were a lot of things that were not solidified and stable in my life. And navigated through that mentally on top of physically, and then praying to God that He would answer me and try to, make this experience lighter for me or totally obsolete. um, I had to navigate through some very, very, very hard decisions because I didn't want to have surgery. But I knew in order to get rid of those fibroids and to not be so anemic to the point where I was with a low blood count, that I was becoming critically faint and critically weak, because it got to that point where I could barely drive with confidence before I had my surgery for the fibroid removal. So there were a lot of things I had to work through within myself because there weren't any pushers in my life to say, hey, you should go ahead and do XYZ. It was really on me to discover, to seek out, to make the phone calls. It was really on me to try to navigate through, not even at the time, in some parts of my experience, the internet did not exist. All you had were your friends or your peers, and I was pretty much a loner. Even though I loved people, I didn't have people that were in my space that I felt were mature enough to even assist me and lead me in certain spaces. There were a lot of things happening even with that, with people that I really couldn't trust, because there was some damage that happened with, you know, being mishandled at a young age. So I really, really had to navigate through some things as a loner. And so now, as a grown woman that doesn't have any children because my miscarriages were too chronic and too life threatening, I never understood why. I never understood what the main issue was for me to not be able to hold a child full term. We just knew my body just wasn't capable of doing it, but I never received answers, right? So I had to navigate through my rebounds, and I had to navigate through my recoveries. Um, so it's a real thing for women to not really know the thing that works for our bodies. And I'm sure we have way more in common than we do with differences when it comes down to this topic of our bodies, and how it weighs heavily on us mentally, with not really knowing if we're getting the right information and tools that can help us be proactive and not have to suffer as much. I could have lost my life um, on several occasions, just because of the female trauma and issues that I went through in my body. I could have lost my life, and I say that sparingly to a certain degree because it's heavy to say. Um, it's hard to hear me say that, but I did have support of family and a couple of friends. I did have the support, I did have the love, I did have the prayers. Everybody doesn't show up the same way, and that's okay. But your girl just had so much on my mind. And now when I think about how the doctors failed me, my mind can't help but go into a soft space and a concerned space with other women who look just like me, who may not be receiving the right report, or the proactive report, or the assistance or the support that they need in order to avoid and dodge certain bullets that you don't have to brace yourself for or feel the impact from. And it can be very troubling to put your focus on assistance with doctors, knowing that there is no other way due to how chronic things can be, but the doctors are letting you down. Doctors are putting a band-aid where you really need some rehabilitation. You really need some deep rooted research, not this surface type stuff. So I'm afraid to watch this podcast, is my point. I'm afraid to watch this podcast that's talking about things that women need to know, only because I'm afraid it's going to strike the same match that opens me up for emotional trauma and disappointment. But because it shook, as a believer in Jesus Christ, Yeshua, let's just say Yeshua, Hamashiach, okay? I'm not going to argue with anybody. Yeshua, it challenged my faith to a high degree because I'm dealing with trying to navigate things the best way I know how with the pennies that I can rub together to keep going to the doctor, to keep getting medical attention. And I'm trying to find my place in the world as a young adult and trying to get some consistency financially, and nothing is working because one is more concerning than the other, or one is more demanding or pulling my attention towards more than I can pull all of my attention to financial stability or financial gain. And I'll be honest, just a little uh FYI, financially I could have made some better decisions. Sorry, y'all. That's just a whole nother conversation with it. I could have made a better decisions financially. However, however, there were still some major issues going on in my life. Um, so as you all navigate as women, the part that I did not share was I also had to have a hysterectomy, and that a whole another bucket of issues arrived from that because um, with my first surgery, I had to deal with some things like scar tissue, which was very painful. But my second surgery was the hysterectomy, and the hysterectomy was definitely devastating um, before, during, and after the fact because I went through what could have destroyed my kidneys. And I still to this day don't know why my kidneys were malfunctioning soon after I had my hysterectomy. It was by the grace of God that I lived through that. Even now, with some things that I go through or have gone through, it's by the grace of God that I lived and I'm living and I can consider myself thriving, not because I got it going on financially or, with my style or anything like that, but my mind is rich. When your mind can be rich, you're going to protect it at all costs. Because when your mind is gone, what do you have? And that's not to discourage anyone, but I definitely have a high gratitude for my mental, which has gone through many things with PTSD, high anxiety, social anxiety, panic attacks. uh, You know, my mental has definitely gone through the ringer. So I get it. I can relate to you if you have gone through or are going through any of those things. So, what do we do as women and women of faith where we're trying to navigate through these things or we have already navigated through it? My suggestion on my end to women that's on this side of the coin who have gone through it and you've learned some things and you're on the path of learning more to execute what's best for your body or you're trying to execute what's going to be more holistic for your body, through healing, through God's grace, through God's instructions, then you will be the one to teach others. Yes, you will be the one to teach others, other women, other young girls, because you know why? That was not the case for me, and that's not a victim talking. That's a woman that's telling the truth because I want people to get help and get help the way they should get help because it's too many of us keeping our silence. It's too many people keeping our silence and just going through life, or we're too busy going through life and we're not finding the time to carve out to say, hey, how about I share my story? How about not only do I share my story, but I share the knowledge? So, with that being said, though I have gone through many things physically, there's still a sensitive spot that I have to work through because I'm still living in this body that now cannot have menstrual cycles. And according to their podcast, they're going to talk about that. They're going to talk about the dangers or the issues that arrive when you do not have a menstrual cycle, when your body is no longer on that clock. It's they're letting you know that there is an alarm going off in your body that you need to pay attention to, and it could be something that's communicating to you a shorter lifespan, mental issues. Listen, this is something that my sisters are not going through. They have some issues going on, but they haven't crossed over into where I have been. And I'm glad they haven't. And they are making some decisions, um, as older women who can get now the resources and get now the support and get and get the information. Whereas for me, the information just had to be sought out like a scavenger hunt. The information had to be learned through the pains and trials and errors that could have taken my life. So I'm not ready to listen to their podcast yet. If anything, I'm gonna have to really treat myself and get something really nice to eat. And I'll watch it with my favorite little, you know, meal or snack because my mental right now might not be ready for, or my emotional side, my emotions will not be ready to hear. Like there's more to be concerned about because right now, y'all, I don't want to have more to be concerned about today. It's a good day. It's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful life. Because again, my mental, I feed what's good for my mental, and I'm very particular about others feeding their mental, feeding your mental health good things so it can thrive and survive and be in tune, right? So get the assistance that you can through your OBGYN. Find an OBGYN that is thorough and they will not just treat you like another file in their database. And the last suggestion I have for us women is continue to learn and continue to learn together. And please do not, if you can help it, do not go to any specialist, OBGYN, um, do not go to a gynecologist by yourself if you can help it. Do not have that surgery by yourself if you can help it. Do not make decisions and sign your name on the dotted line before you have some conversations with yourself and people who have been there, done that, or who are willing to walk through with you with the information that you both can learn. And spouses, husbands, I can say that this is the opportunity for you all as well to learn the body of a woman. You're never going to get it because we're not going to get it all as women, and we're the ones that they got to face it head on. So I recommend this to men, spouses, to please consider learning about the things that women have to endure and the changes that she has to endure and what it is that she will need to aid her body for top tier health. Okay. Thank you guys for watching this 30-minute live on YouTube where I am transparent, sharing my story and experiences through the lens of fear and faith. You all take care and have a wonderful and prosperous day. Bye bye. Until next time.